Welcome back to Thai Horror Story. Tonight, we dive in to the legend of the widow ghost. Is one of Thailand's most deeply rooted cultural horrors. In both rural villages and urban areas, stories are told of a female spirit that goes on a rampage at night, especially when men in the village start dying inexplicably, one after the other. The legend has spread across Thai culture for hundreds of years. Old records from the northeastern and northern regions agree on a common tale. A woman who died pregnant, died from a broken heart, was abandoned, murdered, or whose husband died, leaving her with intense vengeance. If she still holds on to attachment or deep resentment, her spirit will not pass on, but will become a widow ghost, determined to pull men to join her in the afterlife. The ghost is typically described as a beautiful young woman, fair-skinned, with a sad but seductive face. She often appears at night, especially during the new moon, lurking near banana trees, sugar palms, or dark, isolated roads. Her targets are young men or middle-aged men who are sleeping alone. In many areas, if young men in a village die suddenly without clear cause, falling asleep and never waking up, sudden cardiac arrest, or asphyxiation, it is immediately said, "The widow has come for him." Villagers immediately perform rituals to ward off the widow ghost. These methods include putting up wooden signs that read, "No men live here," or "This house has no men," hanging women's underwear outside the home, sticking an axe or knife near the head of the bed to intimidate the spirit, or even sleeping in crowded groups so the ghost dare not take any single person. These rituals are still practiced in many villages in Isan and northern Thailand today. Tonight, if you are sleeping alone, listening to the rainfall, listening to the wind blow past your house, I warn you, don't turn off the lights. Today, I'm going to tell you the terrifying experience of a man named Nop. He met her, the most malevolent widow ghost, a meeting he would remember for the rest of his life. If you're ready, keep the lights on until the end, because something might be listening with you right now. Chapter 1. The Widow's Land. The sound of rain pouring, the strong wind, the smell of mud mixed with old metal. Someone is listening to those sounds in an old wooden house, a house no one dared to sleep in for more than 3 nights, because they said, "The widow is inside." My name is Nop, a construction foreman from Bangkok. That month was the beginning of the Buddhist Lent period, and it rained almost every day. My company got a contract to build a 2-story house for a customer in the northeastern part of Thailand, Isan. The owner was also from Bangkok. He wanted a vacation home in his wife's old village, about 10 kilometers from the district center. The house was situated in the middle of old rice fields, with a long, deep dirt road leading to a cluster of small wooden houses. At first, I had no idea what that area was called, until the first day we arrived. "You shouldn't stay here, brother. That house, it's in the widow's territory." I still remember the voice of an elderly woman in the village. She spoke with wide eyes, gripping her broom tightly, genuinely afraid as she warned me. When I started asking, the villagers shared similar tales. Decades ago, there was an epidemic in the village. Many men died one after another. Some said it was disease, but others said their lives were taken by the widow. According to local belief, the widow ghost is a spirit who died violently, usually a woman who was married and died with intense residual vengeance. To take a man's life, she visits them in a dream. In the dream, a beautiful woman in white sits at the foot of the bed, speaks sweetly, and slowly reaches out to stroke the man's chest. The man feels something sucking the breath from his body. When he wakes up, he dies within 3 days. I laughed it off, thinking it was just a local scary story. I told my crew, "Don't be scared, or the job won't get done." But who knew that a few nights later, one of my workers would become the first victim. Chapter 2: The First Victim. We pitched our tents next to the construction site because the location was so remote. On the first night, it rained lightly with strong winds. The chirping of insects was deafening. Around midnight, there was a metallic tapping sound coming from the partially finished roof. No one was up there. Gong, gong. The sound was rhythmic, like someone lightly tapping metal. My 2 workers and I grabbed flashlights and went outside. There was no one there. Only the blue canvas covering the tools was flapping violently. I thought it was just the wind hitting some loose metal and dismissed it. But that night, Num, one of my workers, said he had a strange dream. He dreamed a long-haired woman in white came to him. She sat at the foot of his bed, stroked his chest, and said sweetly, "Come stay with me, dear." Num woke up suddenly, cold and drenched in sweat. He told us about it the next morning, laughing, but his laugh was strangely strained. 3 days later, he was dead. When we found Num's body, it was pouring rain. We called him to wake up, but there was no response. Inside the tent, he lay still, eyes wide open, as if in ultimate shock. There were no signs of a struggle, no wounds, no clear cause. I called the police, and the village doctor shook his head. Acute heart failure was the doctor's conclusion. But the villagers knew better. He's been taken by the widow ghost. I saw the light floating near that roof last night. The news spread. Many men in the village started tying women's underwear around their waists, believing that if they wore women's garments, the widow ghost wouldn't bother them. I started to feel uneasy, but as the foreman, I had to stay. The next night, I couldn't sleep. I heard a sound like faint weeping coming from the roof area. At first, I thought someone had left the radio on or was drunk, but when I listened closely, it was a woman's voice, a soft, lingering sob that slowly faded. I got up and shone my flashlight toward a wooden pillar. There was a wet spot, as if someone had been standing there, dripping water onto the floor. I shone the light. No one, but the ground was covered with small, barefoot prints, like a woman's. From then on, I heard that sound every night. I began to be certain she was real. Chapter 3: The truth of the land. The next morning, I went to see the head monk at a nearby tiny temple with a large Bodhi tree in the center. The monk looked at me calmly and said, "They warned you. That is the widow's house. There used to be a house there, exactly where you are building. The woman who owned it lost many husbands. Her new husband died too. Eventually, she hanged herself under the tamarind tree behind the house." A shiver ran down my spine. The monk explained that after her death, many men in the village died in succession. The villagers called the area the widow's land, and no one dared to build a house there again. The monk handed me a red thread and a sacred amulet, takrut. "Wear this for protection, and don't sleep alone." I took them, though I was still skeptical. But when I returned to the site, I started seeing shadows. That night, I was guarding the site alone, as the other two workers had gone home. I kept a light on in the center of the yard. Around 1 a.m., while I was writing down material costs, I saw the shadow of a woman reflected on the house wall. The shadow was standing right behind me, even though no one was there. I spun around, nothing, but the shadow remained on the wall, standing still, and then slowly, it turned its face towards me. My flashlight nearly slipped from my hand. My hands were freezing, and my heart hammered. I immediately ran out of the site and didn't dare go back in that night. The next morning, another worker named Chai returned. He said he dreamt a woman came and stood by his bed saying, "Come with me, handsome brother." I strictly forbade anyone from sleeping at the site, but Chai, determined to prove his bravery, refused to listen. The next morning, Chai was gone. We searched all day. By evening, we found his body in an old well behind the site. He looked like he had been dragged down, with no signs of a struggle. But the most chilling detail was that his right hand was clutching a woman's traditional skirt, fatung, tightly. Chapter 4. The Last Scream. After Chai's funeral, I considered abandoning the job, but the owner insisted I continue building. "The house must be finished. It's my wife's home," he said coldly, with a strange look in his eyes as he gazed at the land. I noticed his wife never came to meet me, yet every night I saw a woman's shadow in a white dress, walking on the unfinished balcony of the house across the way, even though no one had moved in. One day, the local old woman secretly talked to me. She revealed, "The woman the owner calls his wife died 5 years ago." I was shocked. What she said next made my blood run cold. "That woman is the one who hanged herself under the tamarind tree. She is the widow ghost of this place." I planned to escape the next morning, but that night the heavy rain and wind howled outside. As I packed my belongings in the wooden shack, I heard a knock on the door. Knock, knock, knock. "Foreman, open the door for me." The voice was soft, deep, like a woman whispering right next to my ear. I trembled, clutching the red thread tightly, but the voice continued, "Don't be afraid. I'm lonely." The door creaked open by itself, though I hadn't touched it. A woman in a white dress stood there. Her long hair was wet with rain, her face pale and her eyes hollow. She smiled and whispered softly, Come live with me, my dear. That's all I remember. After that, everything went dark. 3 days later, the police arrived at the site after someone reported a man screaming for help. But when they arrived, there was no one. Only my phone was found in the shack. The recording app was still running. In the recording, my voice could be heard, faint and trembling. Who's there? Don't come close. Don't touch me. Num, chai, don't. And then a woman's prolonged laughter echoed, and my voice stopped. After the incident, the construction site was permanently abandoned. The owner vanished without a trace. There are only rumors that people still see a woman in white standing on the unfinished house frame every rainy night. To this day, the area is still called the Widow's Land. No one dares to build anything there, and sometimes the villagers still hear a man screaming in the rain. The voice sounds like Foreman Nop, the last man who stayed in that house. This story was reconstructed from the voice recording found on the missing foreman's phone. Even in our modern world, the belief in the widow ghost persists. It's not just about ghosts, it's about fear, love, and loss. The widow ghost might simply be a manifestation of a forgotten woman, or the sorrow of a woman left alone, a powerful feeling that villagers interpreted as the fierce vengeance of a spirit. And you, do you believe the widow ghost is real?